Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope you're all well wherever you are and whatever you're up to. I'm Lauren and this is part 3 of my new fabric focus series on my YouTube channel and on my blog as well, where I am focusing on things from a home dressmaker's point of view to try and give you a bit more knowledge and understanding of the different fabrics that are out there that you can use to make clothes, and then how to pair those fabrics with patterns. So I've got lots of pattern recommendations, and today I'm going to be focusing on denim fabric. I absolutely love denim, and I'm sure if you've never sewn with it before, you've probably got some denim in your wardrobe at home, so you know that anything you make out of denim, you're going to get quite a lot of wear out of it. So the word denim itself is quite an umbrella term. There's actually lots of different types of denim and thicknesses too, so making sure you've got the right kind of denim for your project is really important. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about how denim is made. So traditionally, denim is made from cotton and it is woven with what's called a twill weave. So that's when you get these kind of diagonal sort of ridges or like this diagonal texture on the fabric. That's what makes denim really thick and hard wearing, because of course it was traditionally used for work wear and jeans and overalls. Nowadays it's more common for the denim to be made of a mix of different fibres. So for example, it might be cotton and polyester. That helps to just control the shrinkage that happens in the fabric and the wrinkles that might occur as well. It's just 100% cotton one. Quite often it's also got a stretchy fibre in it as well, so it might be like 2 or 3% spandex or elastane. Just remember that the percentage of stretchy fibre is not reflective of the percentage of stretch, the amount of physical stretch that the fabric has. So to calculate the actual physical stretch, you still need to do it in the same way that I showed you in the jersey post, which was last week, so where you're keeping the fabric relaxed and then just measuring to see how much it actually physically stretches. So traditionally when denim's made, it is that blue colour, and obviously there's lots of variations of blue within that, and the fibres that have made it are one direction of fibres or threads are white and the other direction is blue, and that's what gives that sort of two-tone appearance to the fabric. And also then when the fabric starts to wear and kind of wear in and sort of rub in various areas, it starts to look a little bit white. So some other fabrics that are blue in colour but they don't necessarily have that twill weave to them can get kind of grouped into the denim category as well, so I'm going to show you some examples of them later. So next up is how to wash and care for your denim, and the most important thing to remember here is that denim, well, 100% is going to fade. That's just what happens to it. It's going to fade, it's going to wear in, it's going to get this really nice character to it as you wear and wash the garment, and that's just a normal process of it. So to give you an example, I've got a pair of jeans that are made from the same fabric, but I made one pair ages ago and I made one pair more recently, so not worn in as much. So you can see the difference. This is the same type of fabric, it's just an older garment that's been used more and washed more. You can see what's happened to it. The wearing and fading of denim can vary depending on the quality of the fabric and also the initial dyeing process that it's gone through during the manufacturing stage. So I've looked into it a bit before in the past, and I've tried some home methods of fixing the dye to try and minimise the amount of fading that happens. So some places suggest you can like soak in vinegar or put salt in it as well, but from when I've tried that personally, I've found that it hasn't really made much of a difference, to be honest. And my view is that it all just depends on how it's been dyed in the first place. If the process that it's gone through to be dyed and like the chemicals that they use at that stage, if it's not fixed the dye really hard and fast to the cotton fibres, then the denim is just going to fade, and there's probably not a huge amount you can do with that. You just have to embrace the more kind of worn in, rugged look, really. But I would always suggest that you do pre-wash your denim. It can shrink sometimes by about up to 5%. I personally pre-wash my denim usually at 40 degrees and usually put it on for like maybe 2 or 3 rinses with a 1200 spin cycle, because I just like my laundry life easy, and that's how I generally wash all of my clothes. So try to treat the fabric as I know I'll treat it once I've made it into a garment. If you wanted to go a little bit easier on the fabric, you could wash it at 30 degrees, reduce the spin cycle a little bit so it's not going round as many times. But what's really common for you to find is that, especially on fabrics where the dye is very saturated, there's like a really dark denim, after you've pre-washed it and you take it out, you can see some lines kind of going through the fabric where they look a little bit white. It's maybe like the dye started to wear off and a little bit more, just depends how it's been sort of bunched up in the washing machine. So that's really common to happen, but usually I've found whenever that does happen, by the time I've made it up into a garment and I've just, I've worn it and washed it a few times, then it all just sort of blends in and that just becomes the character of the denim. So, it's normal for that to happen, and just kind of be aware of that really. So in terms of working with denim, the kind of needles that you want to use, if it's a lightweight denim, probably an 80 is going to be totally fine. But if it starts to be a bit of a thicker denim, maybe about 8 to 10 ounce denim and above, then you would want a denim or a jeans specific needle. They have a really slim tip which just helps them to get through the thick fibres of the fabric a bit better, and then the shaft of the needle is also reinforced, so it can just cope with more layers of fabric really. In terms of thread, I just use Gutermann sew-all thread for normal seams, and even if it's a stretchy denim, then you still just treat it like a woven fabric. You still just use a straight stitch to stitch with it. If you're doing something that requires top stitching, then you can use a thicker top stitch thread to make the top stitching a bit more decorative and stand out more. If you do use that top stitch thread, then just make sure that you use a top stitch needle as well. The eye of the needle and the top stitch needles is bigger to cope with that thicker thread, so you'll find that the tension of your stitches is much more even if you've got that top stitch needle in there. When you're pressing and ironing your project as you're doing it, just make sure the iron's nice and hot and it's got steam in it as well. If it's a really thick denim or you've got lots of layers, you might want to use a clapper to help squash everything. So clapper's that wooden tool that you just use once you've ironed and pressed and steamed your fabric. You just plonk that clapper on top and just put pressure on it and just wait for a few seconds, and it just helps to squish everything together. So that can help with really thick, bulky denim. And then I mentioned before a bit about dealing with the stretch in denim, so do still treat it just like a woven fabric, but bear in mind stretchy denim will kind of bag out and sort of give a little bit as you wear your garment, and I'm sure you've all experienced that before. As soon as something's come straight out the wash, or if it's a brand new thing, it can feel quite tight and snug, but as soon as you've worn it for the day, it starts to bag a little bit. That's to do with the amount of recovery that's in a fabric. So when you check out the percentage of stretch that a fabric's got, you want to keep it relaxed, see how far it stretches, and then when you let it relax again, does it go back to its original state? And if it doesn't, then the difference is the amount of recovery that the fabric's got. So you probably all experienced this before. When you get something with baggy knees, that fabric just doesn't have a great amount of stretch to it, and it usually takes a wash for it to go back again. So what I always do when I'm working with denim that has got stretch in it at the fitting stage, as I'm making something, say I'm making a pair of jeans that are meant to be quite fitted, or they're skinny jeans, as I'm checking the fit during the process of making the jeans, then I'll always make sure that they are quite snug and tight, because I know that once I wear them, they're gonna relax a little bit. So just bear that in mind really when you are working with stretch denim. So now I'm going to cover the different types of denim that you can get, and of course there is like a myriad of loads of different kinds and quite technical names out there, but I've tried to simplify it as much as I can of things that you might come across when you're buying fabric in shops or online, and then I've tried to group different types of fabric together with patterns as well, so hopefully that helps narrow it down. Because denim is so versatile, there are so many different patterns that you can use, but I've tried to show a selection of patterns that represent different types of garments. So even if you find a pattern that you think might be suitable for denim, then hopefully you can identify it by seeing that it's like something else I recommend. So what I suggest you do is there's like two main things you want to consider when you're picking out a fabric for a specific project. So the first one is the weight of the fabric. So it's really common with denim that gets described in ounces. So that is the weight of a yard of fabric in ounces, and that is the imperial way to measure the weight of the fabric. So obviously the higher the physical weight of the fabric, the thicker the fabric is, and that can range from about 4.5–5 ounces up to about 20 ounces. You can get heavier denim than that, but it's not as common, and it is like really thick and rigid. It's so stiff, so you might not really want to use that anyway, but you can come across more than 20 is my point. You might also come across the metric way to measure it, and that's what I've mentioned before in some of my other videos. So that's the grams per square metre. So if you were to measure a square metre of the fabric, how many grams would that be? The GSM. So you might come across that as well. So that is the thickness. Then the next thing to consider is the fibre content and whether it has any stretch fibres in it too. So is it cotton and spandex? Does it have a bit of polyester in there? So is it going to stretch or is it not? Some patterns will be designed specifically for stretch denims. Some patterns will be designed specifically for non-stretch denims. So that's something that you want to check, and then just make sure that you know how much stretch it's got before you choose. So the first kind of group that I'm going to cover is 4.5 ounce denim up to about 8 ounce denim, and they're the kind of lightest weight ones that you're going to come across. So they're really nice and soft, they're pliable. As soon as you wear them, they're going to feel like you can move around in them pretty easily, and they're great for shirts, dresses, skirts, tops, loads of different projects. So we've got a range of lightweight denims in the shop, and they have been woven with that classic sort of denim thing where one direction of fibres is one colour and one direction of fibres is another colour, but it's combined different colours together. So this one that I've got to show you here is purple and peach, and then I've got another one which is coral and mauve. So you can see this sort of two-toned appearance, and you can see when I kind of move it around as well, it's really nice, lightweight. It scrunches up nice and easily. It's going to move around a lot, and then if I hold some up in front of you here, then you can see when I kind of wave it around, it's not floaty, but it is moving around quite a lot. So the kinds of patterns that are going to be good for this are the grain line alder shirt dress, and that's actually the dress that I'm wearing just now. The Tilly and the Buttons Stevie top's another good one, the topper dress. The grain line Archer shirt, the Lees & Clow classic shirt if you're looking for a skirt, the Tilly and the Buttons Dominique skirt. Also the Megan Nielsen Matilda dress would be good as well. It's got some nice features on it with the pockets and the yokes. So yeah, that is the lightweight denim. So they're about 4.5 ounces up to 8 ounces. So the next group that I wanted to talk to you about are the chambres. And even though chambres don't have that classic twill weave to them, they do get sort of put together in the category of denim quite a lot because they are woven with the thread going one way is white and the thread going the other way is blue or another colour. So they do have that really nice two-tone appearance of denim. They can be made from different fibres, so it might be cotton and linen, or it might be linen and rayon. If it's got rayon in it, it's probably likely to have a bit more bounce to it and a bit more kind of fluidity. So I've got this one here, which is part of our Brussels washer yarn dyed range, and that's from Robert Kaufman, and it's got 55 linen and 45 rayon, and you can see that it does just kind of bounce and move around a little bit more. I've made a Tilly and the Buttons Bettine dress before with this kind of fabric in a sort of beigey kind of colour, and because the Bettine's got that gathered waist and the fabric has the rayon part in it, then it just sort of suits that style really, really nicely. I've found that with these fabrics, because the threads that have actually woven them tend to be a little bit thicker and the weave tends to be a little bit looser, you can see here that the threads are just a little bit more irregular. It's got a bit more of a natural sort of feel to it. They do tend to shrink a bit more, so definitely pre-wash them. Other patterns that are good to use for chambres are the Tilly and the Buttons Francoise dress. I've used this spotty one before to make the Francoise and it looked really nice. The grain line patterns Archer shirt is another good one. The Avid Seamstress day dress, the Merchant and Mills camber top, the grain line willow top, that was the one I had in my woven cotton fabrics post, and that was from our homespun range. The grain line Hadley top and the Sew House 7 Burnside bib. So chambres are really versatile for loads of different types of garments, and really nice to work with as well. They tend to hold their shape really nicely, so good for beginners. The next group is the 8 ounce to sort of 11 ounce, that kind of medium weight range here, and you might find that fabrics within this range some have stretch and some don't, so you need to check out the pattern that you've got and see if it recommends whether you need stretch or not. Some fabrics you could get away with either. The Tilly and the Buttons Cleo dungaree, for example, you could probably use that with either a stretch or a non-stretch. It's quite loose fitted, but certainly some style of jeans are gonna either be stretch or non-stretch, so that's the first thing to check out. This one that I've got here is our really popular range for jeans, and it is the 11-ounce stretch denim. So you can see it's got that classic twill weave to it with the ridges. The back looks lighter in colour because you can see the white threads coming through. You can see that it's got the stretch too. So I've used this fabric to make the ginger jeans before, which are fitted skinny jeans. It would also be good for the Megan Nielsen Ash jeans too, the Tilly and the Buttons Milla dungarees, or the Cashmere Ames jeans. If it is a fabric that's got no stretch in it, a denim that's no stretch, then the Morgan jeans are going to be better for that, or the Megan Nielsen Dawn jeans too. So just as a comparison, this fabric here is another one that we've got. It's an 8-ounce denim, and you can see that it is much lighter in weight. It's just a bit softer. It doesn't have as much kind of structure to it. So when you do come to pick a denim for your project, if the pattern doesn't say a particular ounce in weight that the denim should be, you kind of just have to use your judgment on that. If something's a lower ounce, it's going to be thinner and lighter in weight. So say you make a pair of jeans out of that, they're just going to be a bit more summery, they're going to be thinner and maybe not as durable as if you used a thicker denim which is higher in weight. So it's about just thinking, okay, what is this fabric like? What are the characteristics of it, and how is that going to translate into a garment at the end? The last group or sort of range of weights that I was going to talk to you about are anything 12 ounce and above. So I've kind of said 12 to 20, and I mentioned before that you can get heavier than 20 ounces, but they're not that common. But these are the fabrics that really can be quite rigid and firm. They can feel quite stiff, especially when you first start working with them. But as you wash them or use them or wear the garments that you make, they can soften, they do break down, and they will wear to have a really, really lovely texture and character to them. So definitely garments that are looser fitting is better for those heavier denims. So the Closet Case Patterns Morgans or the Megan Nielsen Dawn jeans are good examples. The Cleo dungaree dress again is another good example. The Rosari skirt by Pauline Alice is another good example, because it's got that classic A-line shape. Using a denim that is a little bit thicker, it just helps to hold the structure of that skirt out a little bit more. And the Tilly and the Buttons Ness is another good one. It's just quite a straight, structured skirt, so good for something that is a little bit heavier. So I hope that that's given you a bit more context in terms of the different types of denim that you can get, and the two main things to look out for are thickness and weight, and then whether it has stretch or not too. That's knowing those two things and knowing what the pattern recommends in terms of that as well is going to mean that you get a good match whenever you come to make something out of denim. So if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, just remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. The next one in this little series is going to be on slippery, floaty, drapey fabrics, which can be made of all sorts of fibres, but I'm focusing on ones that have that characteristic. And it's one of my favourite fabrics to work with, so I'm looking forward to sharing all of that with you. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and if you've got any questions, just let me know in the comments below. You can also find a link in the description to my website where I've linked to all of the patterns that I've mentioned. You can buy them on our website. So yeah, thanks guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye!